Okay, today we're going to do, this is going to be a double. We're going to do two flies, two different styles. These are both classified as micro jigs. The first one that we're going to tie it's tied in black here, and it uses some different methods than the other one I'm going to show you. But this has a shiny body that is a lateral scale, and then the rib here is peacock herl. Excuse me, not peacock herl, ostrich herl. Longer fibers, and the tail is just simply marabou with a little bit of crystal flash. The other fly is kind of a more of a traditional woolly booger pattern, but it's tied on in a micro jig style with a jig hook and slotted tungsten bead, and but it's tied very similarly to the way you would tie a woolly booger. Actually, it's tied exactly the way you tie a woolly booger. We're going to do this one first, the black with the shiny body. So I'll start with I've already got the jig hooks on the beads on the jig hook, and we're using a tungsten slotted bead. And you've got to orient those beads so they slide all the way down the hook, right to the eye, just like that. Then we're going to use some 0.015 lead wire and take about a half a dozen wraps. There we go. Helicopter off the excess. Push that up into the bead to hold it in place. You know, the added weight's nice of the lead wire, but really it's there to hold that bead in position. We'll take our black thread, and right behind the lead wraps, we'll tie in the thread and cut off our tag. And then build up a little bit of a thread ramp up to the lead wire. That will make a smooth transition as we wrap in other material up to and over the wire. Okay, then back to the bend in the hook. Now we'll take a single marabou feather, and we want the tail to be about as long as the hook itself, about like that. So we'll pinch it to mark the location, and then several wraps to hold the marabou tail in place. Now we can take the marabou and cut it off. What I do is lay the scissors right on the top of the bead and then cut it kind of at an angle like that. What that does, it causes that material to lay down and gives us a kind of a tapered approach, so we don't have a big ridge of material that we're tying over. Okay, with this fly, we want this thread base to be fairly uniform because we're going to wrap that lateral scale over it. It just makes it easier to wrap that stuff if you've got a pretty good base. Okay, back to the base of the tail and forward about, not quite a quarter of an inch. Now our flash is just going to be some crystal flash, and we'll take just one strand of crystal flash and fold that over in two. Cut it in half, and then we'll wrap that around the thread and tie in all that on one side. Grab two of those strands, transfer them to the other side. So we have two strands on each side of the hook laying on the side of the marabou. Okay, I fold all those strands up together so I can cut them the same length. We want those about the same length as the tail. There we go. Now with this particular fly, we're going to want to tie on the other materials in sequence. The last one we're going to wrap to the forward part of the fly is going to be the wire rib. Now this is some size extra small ultra wire in a silver. We'll tie that in at the base of the tail. Nice and solid so it doesn't pull out. And then the next material is going to be the ostrich herl. So we'll take a single strand of ostrich herl off of the feather. And cut that free. And tie that in right in front of the base of the tail. And the first material that we will wrap is going to be the lateral scale. So we'll take just one strand of the lateral scale, snip that off. Tie that in place. And wrap our thread to the front, leave it right behind the bead. Then take the lateral scale. You're going to see now why we tied those materials down in sequence. Take the lateral scale and wrap that forward. I'll go back and start that again. I'm trying not to get any gaps in the lateral scale, but if you get some, it's not the end of the world. The whole idea is this lateral scale is going to show through and be very visible down below the ostrich herl that we're going to tie on as a hackle. Okay, about 3 wraps to tie that down and several wraps on top to cinch it in and cut off the remainder. Now it's time for the ostrich herl. Wrap that the same direction as we wrapped our thread. And provide a fairly uniform spacing to our wraps up to the front of the fly and tie it off right behind the bead. Last material is the wire, and we're going to counter wrap that the opposite direction as we wrapped our ostrich herl. And the reason for that is we're going to use it to secure the ostrich herl so it's a more durable fly. So, and it actually, this wire rib becomes invisible, but it's definitely helps with the strength of the fly. Strength and durability. Okay, now we can either helicopter that off, or a lot of times I'll just use a pair of scissors and cut that wire. You don't want to use your good tying scissors for that. A couple of wraps, and then the whip finish. And a little bit of head cement. And there you have it. That is the completed micro jig in a black. Now, I plan on also tying these in an olive with the exact same materials, but olive, ostrich herl and olive for the marabou. Now the second version, I'm tying with a copper bead, tungsten bead. And same process with the lead wrap. Helicopter that off. I'm using brown thread in this case to be compatible with the other materials that we're using. Again, taper the thread up against the lead wire so we can transition smoothly with other materials. Come back to the bend of the hook. Now you can use regular brown marabou if you want to, but I really like using the marabou off of a pheasant cape. If you search around, you can find these fuzzy marabou fibers on the pheasant cape, and pull those free. And these are just great for these short little tails on these micro jigs. Very fuzzy. Again, the tail is about the length of the entire hook. Cut that off. And we're going to use the same crystal flash for the flash in the tail. One strand cut in two. Put it over the tying thread, tie it on one side of the hook. Take two of the strands to the other side. Tie those off. Again, so you have two strands on each side of the hook. Trim them all at the same time. Now for the body, we're going to use some peacock ice dub. It's going to give a lot of flash and be pretty cool. So just a small piece of peacock, or bundle of peacock ice dub. And this stuff is really tough to dub. You've got to moisten your fingers, and then when you place this on the thread, you've really got to apply some pressure so you consolidate those fibers around the thread. Now I've messed up, but we're going to salvage that. I forgot to tie in my wire ribbing, so we're going to do that right now before we dub the fly. I've always said awkwardness is better than death. Okay, we've got that wire in there. All right, now we can dub the body of the fly. As we wrap the dubbing, you've got to provide some more twist to your dubbing noodle, and then add some more as necessary. We need just a little bit more here. That ice dub doesn't taste very good either when you get some of that on your tongue. Now for our hackle, we're going to use some, actually it's dry fly hackle, some whiting dry fly hackle. Got a big saddle here, and we're going to take a section of dry fly hackle. This stuff is really thin and wispy. I cut off the end of it and tie that in up at the front. Okay, then do a couple of wraps right up at the front, and then spiral that hackle through the ice dub back to the back. Okay, now we can wrap our wire. We don't have to counter wrap this because we wrapped the hackle backwards along the hook. So a couple of wraps of the wire in the back to secure it, secure the hackle, and then spiral the wrap forward. We kind of wiggle it down through the hackle to keep from trapping any more fibers than you have to. You'll still trap a few, and get to the front and tie off the silver wire. And give it a snip. We can also snip off the balance of our hackle. A whip finish. And head cement. And there you have it. 2 different versions of the micro jig. Have fun tying them and fishing them.